Chapter 620. The Glow of Sun and Moon. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. At this moment, it was still impossible to tell who among Xihong and Zhao Hanu was winning the battle. The only thing people could see was their tangled shadows wielding move after move of martial technique, with each move getting more and more advanced. The quicksand canyon was damaged at many places and the canyon was almost flattened to the ground. With Red Wish Emissary and Shibuchu joining the battle, Zhao Hanu was gradually weakened. Lost Illusory World. Using the Holy Crystal Staff, Red Wish Emissary casted an advanced spell, sending Zhao Hanu into an illusionary realm where his moves become slightly delayed. At that moment, Xihong grabbed the opportunity to strike Zhao Hanu on his chest with the Roaring Flame Dragon Palm move. In an instant, Zhao Hanu's chest caved in. There were sounds of breaking bones coming from his body. PFFT. Zhao Hanu flew backward and landed 33 meters away. Shibuchu descended rapidly and landed a kick on Zhao Hanu's waist. With a crack, Zhao Hanu's backbone was broken and he was left paralyzed on the floor, unable to move. I guess the Glazed Knight Commander-in-Chief is not that great after all. Shibuchu and Xihong retreated to the left and right respectively, giving way to Red Wish Emissary. Red Wish Emissary walked up to Zhao Hanu and coldly said, "Tell me, where is Di?" Zhao Hanu was pale and gasping for breath. He said dryly, "Red Wish Emissary, I would advise you not to go against the young master. You are no match for him. He is a tough guy indeed." Red Wish Emissary frowned and her eyes gradually turned cold. She started condensing her spiritual power as she lifted the Holy Crystal Staff. A ray of red light, like a stream of water, emerged from the top of the Holy Staff and wrapping around Zhao Hanu. "Where is Di?" Red Wish Emissary asked for a second time. Zhao Hanu instantly fell into a trance. His brows were knitted, and his conscience seemed to be struggling with the illusion in his mind, and his mouth made mumbling sounds. Zhang Yuochen, who was standing in the distance, was also curious about Di's whereabouts. He kept his gaze on Red Wish Emissary, who was interrogating Zhao Hanu. Suddenly, he smelt a faint fragrance. When he turned around, he saw that Mulinxi had quietly walked up to him. Mulinxi glanced at Red Wish Emissary and said with a smile, "I did not realize what a seductive little vixen Red Wish Emissary is. She is even skilled in sorcery. If not for the effects of her sorcery on Cyan-robed Emissary just now, it would have been difficult for me to take down Cyan-robed Emissary on my own, given my current level of cultivation." Zhang Yuochen sensed something strange in Mulinxi's tone, so he smiled and asked, "What are you trying to say?" Mulinxi blinked and said, "Wouldn't you be attracted by her since she is so skillful in sorcery?" Zhang Yuochen shook his head and replied, "Don't worry, I know what I am doing. I will get out of Eastern Evil Land once I've killed Di. Do you really think I want to be Red Wish Emissary's great guardian for the rest of my life?" Smiling, Mulinxi nodded and said, "Now that's good." Zhao Hanu had amazing willpower. He took some time to try to combat Red Wish Emissary's sorcery before he was finally defeated. However, he stayed silent the whole time as he mobilized genuine chi to break his meridians and blood meridians throughout his body. He would not reveal Di's whereabouts even if it meant death for him. "Young master will revenge me." Zhao Hanu's eyes widened as he said his last words. Thereafter, he turned silent. It is no wonder he was a Glazed Knight Commander. He had such a strong willpower. Red Wish Emissary stopped using sorcery, let out a long sigh and looked disappointed. Suddenly, Red Wish Emissary glanced in the direction of Zhang Yuochen, who was standing next to the lady in green who was wearing a metal mask. Red Wish Emissary's eyes grew cold. Red Wish Emissary had Xihong, Shibuchu, and the rest pull back, so she could face Zhang Yuochen alone. She walked up to Zhang Yuochen with light steps and said with a coquettish grin, "Great Guardian, I have something to discuss with you in private." She deliberately emphasized on the word "in private." Mulinxi was not happy seeing how Red Wish Emissary flirted with Zhang Yuochen. She sneered, "Is there anything I can't hear about?" The Red Wish Emissary batted her eyelashes at Mulinxi and smiled, saying, "Your Highness, the Saintess, you are, after all, not relevant here. There are some things that are not meant for you to hear. Mu Lingxi frowned deeply and she stretched out her arm to grab onto Zhang Yuochen's arm. She puffed up her chest and arched her back in an attempt to make a statement. She said with an arrogant tone, "Red Wish Emissary, are you trying to kick down the ladder now? If not for my help in defeating your opponent just now, would you still be standing here talking casually? I have an intimate relationship with your great guardian, so I'm not an outsider. What is it that I can't hear?" The Red Wish Emissary's expression tensed up and she tightened her grip on the holy crystal staff. She snorted, "I didn't ask you for help. And how is the demonic sect allowed to fight with black market?" Zhang Yuochen sensed the growing tension and feared that they would get into a fight. He quickly said, "In that case, let me speak with Her Excellency in private." Zhang Yuochen tried to pacify Mu Lingxi with some words before walking towards Red Wish Emissary. Red Wish Emissary puffed her chest too and grinned with a victory while she shook her head at Mu Lingxi as if to say, "You can't beat me." Mu Lingxi was enraged by Red Wish Emissary's attempt to provoke her. She ground her teeth and kicked up a pebble from the ground. She would have dashed forward to confront Red Wish Emissary if Zhang Yuochen had not stopped her. Both Zhang Yuochen and Red Wish Emissary made use of their spell to leap into the air and flew to the edge of the top of Quicksand Canyon. After a long night's battle, dawn finally came. The eastern sky glowed with a layer of maroon light. Red Wish Emissary approached Zhang Yuochen, saying, "Great Guardian, what is your relationship with the demonic saintess? Does it matter?" Zhang Yuochen asked exasperatedly. "Of course it matters. If the high-level management of the black market knew I was with the demonic saintess, they would think I colluded with the demonic sect to go against our own people. This would be detrimental to me." Red Wish Emissary continued, "I think it will be better if the demonic saintess leaves." Actually, Zhang Yuochen did not want Mu Lingxi to be involved in the killing of Di because it was too dangerous and he did not want her to be implicated. Zhang Yuochen had discussed this with Mu Lingxi. The plan was for her to hide in a secret place instead of getting involved. It was only because the situation was precarious when Cyan-robed emissary tried to kill Zhang Yuochen. Mu Lingxi was worried for his safety, so she could not help but reveal herself in order to stop Cyan-robed emissary. Zhang Yuochen nodded and said, "All right, I will try to dissuade her from getting involved in this matter." Red Wish Emissary breathed a sigh of relief and a charming smile appeared across her pretty face. Zhang Yuochen asked, "Have you tracked down Di's whereabouts?" Unfortunately that Zhao Hanu was so stubborn that not even my 43rd level of spiritual power was able to squeeze any information out of him, so much so that he took his own life by severing his meridians at the very last moment. Red Wish Emissary's face fell as she shook her head in disappointment. If her spiritual power had reached the 44th level, she would have easily obtained the information she needed from Zhao Hanu. All in all, it was because her spiritual power was still lacking. Zhang Yuochen said, "Maybe I could somehow guess where he is." Red Wish Emissary's eyes brightened and she quickly asked, "Where?" "Red Willow Heights," Zhang Yuochen replied. Red Wish Emissary was taken aback at first but quickly regained her composure. She smiled and said, "That's right, it is quite possible that Di has entered Red Willow Heights. When I went rushing to God Falling Ridge, I merely brought along my most loyal subordinates. The rest of my people are left behind to guard Red Willow Heights." Di would have placed his men among these remaining people. Once he receives the news, he would appear in Red Willow Heights as a victor since he is such an arrogant man. He assumes that by occupying the Red Willow Heights, he is victorious over the rest, but in fact, he is actually exposing his whereabouts. If that happens, we could ambush him and be in the position of control. Until then, it didn't occur to Red Wish Emissary that this was the purpose of Zhang Yuochen's letter to her. At last, there was a turning point in her battle with Di, where she was initially at the losing end. Red Wish Emissary looked on Zhang Yuochen with awe and she could not help but admire him for his wisdom. Di must be furious. He had lost 3 generals, namely Ice Demon, Hunter, and Zhao Hanu. He is bound to make mistakes once he is provoked. I only had to seize this opportunity and I could turn the tables. Zhang Yuochen could see that Red Wish Emissary's strategy was mainly defensively in nature, one that would wait for Di to make a mistake before striking out with a fatal attack. Zhang Yuochen shook his head and said, Now you know that Yi is probably already in Red Willow Heights. Why don't we take the offensive? The Red Wish emissary gently shook her head and said, Ice Demon, Hunter, Zhao Hanu, and Cyan-robed emissary are Yi's most outstanding masters. However, they are not the most capable person on Yi's side. Even with his forces under my control, we may still be defeated if we have a head-on clash with him now. Are you talking about Purple Wind Emissary? Zhang Yuochen asked. The Red Wish emissary replied, yes. Purple Wind Emissary alone is capable of killing us all. You would only stand a chance if your spiritual power had reached the 44th level. There are also some other extremely capable people by Yi's side and they are all very powerful. Zhang Yuochen was silent for a while, then he suddenly turned to look in the direction of the eastern sky. What was he looking at? Out of curiosity, Red Wish emissary also looked towards the sky in that direction. On the horizon, the sun, like a red sphere, started rising slowly, started radiating a warm glow that gradually lit up the dark earth. Besides the sun, a round, silver moon suddenly appeared, emitting bright moonlight. What they were seeing was a rare phenomenon of the sun and the moon glowing alongside each other simultaneously. The silvery full moon moved towards them and stopped above the quicksand canyon. Suspended behind the cloud, rays of moonlight shone down like a waterfall and covered the ground within 100-mile radius with a layer of silver light. As she looked carefully at the moon, she could almost make out the silhouette of a man at the center of the round silver moon.